All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another deep dive. Getting ready for those UPSC exams, it's so important to stay updated on current affairs.
Right.
So today we're going to tackle a sector that's booming right now, data centers in India.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a hot topic. And not just for the prelims either. Understanding the sector, how it impacts our economy, the challenges it faces, all of that's key for crafting those awesome mains answers.
Couldn't agree more. So first things first, right? What exactly are these data centers and why is India making such a big deal about them?
Well, imagine a massive warehouse, like seriously huge, filled to the brim with servers, storage systems, all that tech stuff that makes the internet tick. That's a data center. It's
Yeah.
like the backbone of our whole digital world, powering everything you can imagine.
Right, from online shopping to government service and
Yep,
everything.
exactly. And here's the kicker. India's generating a ton of data. We're talking 20% of the global total. But here's the catch. We only have about 3% of the world's data center capacity.
Wow, that's a huge difference. So we're producing all this data, but don't have the space to store it.
That's exactly why we're seeing this massive surge in demand for data centers right here in India. I mean, the projections are incredible. The market's expected to explode from $4.5 billion in 2023 to a whopping 11.6 billion by 2032.
Wow, that's some serious growth. But what's driving it? I mean, why the sudden need to store everything within India? Wouldn't it be cheaper to just use data centers in other countries?
That's where the RBI mandate comes in. Back in 2018, the Reserve Bank of India, they issued a directive that changed the game. It basically said all payment system data, anything related to Indian customers, has to be stored only within India.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that. So it's about data security, right? Keeping that sensitive financial information safe within our own borders.
Exactly. It's all about data sovereignty, making sure our data is under our control. And it's not just the RBI either. We've got the Public Records Act of 1993 and the more recent one, the Digital Personal Data Protection Act of 2023. All these emphasize data localization.
Right, so it's clear India is serious about protecting its data. And that means more data centers on home ground. So we've got this digitalization boom, new technologies coming up, and government regulations all pushing for data center growth. But what about the bigger picture? What does all this mean for the Indian economy?
Well, it's definitely bigger than just profits for tech companies. Think about it. Building and running these data centers creates a whole chain reaction across the economy. You need people to build them, manage them, secure them. You're talking construction workers, IT specialists, security personnel. It's a whole ecosystem.
Yeah, so it's not just about the tech industry. It's creating jobs across multiple sectors.
Absolutely. And then there's the demand for infrastructure, like reliable power grids, those cooling systems to keep those servers from melting down. It's a massive economic engine.
It's like a domino effect boosting all these different parts of the economy.
Exactly. We're talking about a potential economic activity of over 50,000 crore rupees. And on top of that, data centers are what make all those digital services possible. Online banking, e-commerce, entertainment education, they're the foundation of a modern digital economy.
So data centers are clearly a big deal for India's economic growth. But let's be real, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? What are some of the roadblocks this sector's facing?
Well, for starters, you need a ton of money to build these things. Especially when it comes to those cooling systems, keeping all those servers from overheating is a costly affair.
Makes sense. These data centers are basically like giant high-tech ovens, right? What else?
Reliable power is another huge challenge. These data centers, they guzzle energy, and any power cuts can spell disaster. Then there's the need for skilled workers, people who can manage these complex systems. Finding and training them, that's an ongoing struggle. Oh, and we can't forget about the environment, all that energy consumption. It's got to come from somewhere, and if it's from fossil fuels, well, that's a big carbon footprint to worry about.
Right? Sustainability, that's a huge concern for any industry these days, especially one that uses as much power as data centers do.
It definitely is. But the good news is there's a growing push towards renewable energy. Solar wind power, using those to power these facilities. A lot of companies are also investing in energy efficient tech, especially those cooling systems, trying to minimize that environmental impact.
So there's a lot to think about here. Economic benefits, creating jobs, but also taking care of the environment, making
Yeah.
sure things are sustainable. It sounds like the government's got a big role to play in all of this.
Absolutely. And this is where it gets really interesting for UPSC aspirants. You need to understand what the government's doing, their policies and initiatives in this sector. Like back in 2017, when they granted data centers infrastructure status, that was a game changer.
Infrastructure status, what does that even mean?
Think of it this way. It puts data centers in the same league as essential infrastructure. like roads, bridges, power plants, the really important
Well,
stuff. Yeah, this move made it so much easier for companies to get financing, tax breaks, all those incentives. It basically made investing in data centers a lot more attractive.
So it's like the government saying, hey, we get it, data centers are vital for India's future,
Hmm.
so we're going to make it easier for you to build them.
Exactly. And it's not just the central government either. A lot of states are also jumping in with their own policies to attract these data center investments. Like Maharashtra, for example. Their IT and ITES policy of 2023 specifically focuses on data centers. They recognize the role data centers play in driving economic growth.
Makes sense. States want those investments, those jobs that boost to their local economies. But what about the government itself? Are they just setting policies, or are they actually involved in the data center business?
Well, they're definitely leading by example. Look at the National Informatics Center, or NAC. They've set up these really advanced national data centers to support government initiatives and strengthen our digital infrastructure. It's like they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Right? They're not just talking about it, they're actually doing it. And then there's Digital India. It's not just about data centers, but it aims to improve digital infrastructure and connectivity across the country, which indirectly benefits the sector.
You got it. A more digitally connected India means more data, more demand for data centers, and a stronger digital economy overall. It's all connected.
Right, it all ties together. So we've covered the factors driving this data center growth, the challenges, the government's role. But what about the future? Where are data centers in India headed?
One thing's for sure, this industry isn't standing still. It's constantly evolving with technology and changing demands. Like we're seeing a shift towards hyperscale data centers.
Hyperscale sounds intense. What are those?
Imagine a data center on steroids. These hyperscale data centers are massive. They're built to handle enormous amounts of data and computing power. They're what the big cloud providers, the tech giants, the companies that need a ton of processing power and storage capacity use.
So these are like the mega malls of the data center world.
Exactly. And India's got its own hyperscale data centers now, like the Yad one in Greater Noida. That's a big deal because it shows that India can build and operate these cutting-edge facilities. It's a step towards becoming a major player in the global data center market.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
But bigger data centers don't really solve the sustainability issue, do they?
You're right. That's why sustainability is only going to become more important in the future. We can expect to see more data centers powered by renewable energy using those energy-efficient cooling systems and adopting other green practices. It's not just about being environmentally responsible, it's becoming a smart business move.
Right. Going green is becoming a competitive advantage. Companies that can show their commitment to sustainability are more likely to attract customers and investors.
Exactly. And this is something UPSC aspirants should really pay attention to. Questions about sustainability, the environmental impact of data centers, they're likely to pop up in the mains exam.
All right, so hyperscale data centers and a bigger focus on sustainability. What other trends should we be watching out for?
Well, remember edge computing? We talked about that earlier. That's only going to get bigger. As more and more devices connect to the internet, we need to process data closer to where it's generated. That means we're going to see more smaller, localized data centers popping up in cities and towns across India.
So instead of a few giant data centers, it'll be more of a distributed network. Smaller data centers spread out across the country.
Exactly. Think about it. 5G's rolling out, self-driving cars are coming. Smart cities are becoming a reality. The Internet of Things is connecting everything. We're generating a ton of data. Processing it all in one central location just doesn't cut it anymore. It needs to be handled locally for faster response, times less lag.
Right. That makes sense. And this shifts towards edge computing that's going to have a big impact on infrastructure development jobs, even how we think about data security.
Absolutely. And speaking of data security regulations, those are going to keep evolving too. Data privacy and security are becoming more and more important. We can expect to see stricter regulations both in India and globally. Data localization laws, data sovereignty, cybersecurity, these are all going to be hot topics in the coming years.
So for our UPSC aspirants out there, this is a field that's constantly changing. You need to stay updated. Understanding data centers, the government's role, the challenges, the future trends, it's all crucial for tackling those exam questions related to technology, economics, policymaking.
It's not just about memorizing facts, it's about seeing the bigger picture, analyzing trends, understanding how this rapidly evolving sector impacts everything else.
Great points. Now, we've talked a lot about India's ambitions to become a data center powerhouse. But we're not the only ones in the game, right? There's some serious competition out there, especially from China.
Absolutely. China's a major player when it comes to data centers. I mean, they've got this huge domestic market, amazing infrastructure, and the government's really backing them up. They've really taken their data center industry to a whole new level. Yeah, and their approach has been pretty different from India's. They've focused on building these massive centralized data centers, often in kind of remote areas where land and power are cheaper.
Makes sense, less overhead costs.
Exactly. This strategy has helped them achieve economies of scale and offer competitive pricing. So they're attracting businesses from all over.
But doesn't that kind of go against what we were talking about earlier with edge computing?
Hmm.
You're moving those data centers closer to the users?
You're right. It's an interesting point. But China's kind of doing both. They're setting up these mega data centers as central hubs, and then they're strategically placing smaller edge data centers around them.
So they're trying to get the best of both worlds, centralized power and decentralized reach. Makes sense. So where does India fit into all of this? How do we compete with a giant like China? What are our strengths and weaknesses?
Well, one of India's biggest advantages is our democratic system and our commitment to data privacy and security. A lot of companies, especially in the West, are a little hesitant about storing their data in China because of concerns about government surveillance and data security.
Yeah, that makes sense. Companies want to know their data is safe.
Exactly. And India, with our strong legal framework and independent judiciary, we're seen as a more trustworthy and secure option for data storage.
So being a stable democracy with a focus on the rule of law, that's a big plus for attracting foreign investment. Companies want that assurance that their data is protected and handled responsibly.
Absolutely. And then there's our workforce. We've got this huge pool of talented IT professionals. They're skilled in managing complex technologies and handling the intricacies of data centers. That's something even China's struggling with. They have a shortage of skilled tech workers.
So a skilled workforce and a democratic system that values data privacy, those are definitely big wins for India.
Yeah.
But where do we need to improve to really compete on a global scale?
Well, we've already talked about infrastructure. India's made progress, but we need to keep investing in upgrading our power grid, improving connectivity, making sure we have reliable access to resources like water and land, especially if we want to attract those hyperscale data centers. They need a ton of power and resources.
It's like building a house, right? You need a strong foundation.
Exactly. And then there's ease of doing business. India's made things better, but there's always room for improvement. Streamlining regulations, cutting down on bureaucratic hurdles, creating a more investor-friendly environment. That's going to be key to attracting more data center investment.
Right. We got to make it easy for companies to set up shop here. If there are too many obstacles, they might just go somewhere else.
Yeah.
What about innovation? How do we stay ahead of the game?
Innovation is crucial. India needs to encourage the development of cutting-edge technologies in the data center space. Things like energy efficiency, advanced cooling systems, robust cybersecurity solutions. We got to be at the forefront of this stuff if we want to be competitive.
So it sounds like we need a multi-pronged approach. Better infrastructure, smoother regulations, a focus on innovation. Basically creating an ecosystem that attracts investment, nurtures talent, and positions India as a leader in the global data center market.
Exactly. And for all you UPSC aspirants out there, this is a perfect example of how a nation can play to its strengths, tackle its weaknesses, and make a mark in a rapidly growing global industry. Understanding this market, the impact of government policies, and what it all means for India's economy and digital future, that's crucial for anyone who wants to shape the nation's path.
Absolutely. It's not just about memorizing facts. It's about understanding the trends, connecting the dots, thinking critically about India's role in the global tech landscape.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into India's data center scene. We've looked at what's driving its growth, the challenges it faces, the government's role in it all, and of course the competition from big players like China.
It's been a fascinating discussion. We've explored the forces shaping this industry, the hurdles it needs to overcome, and the incredible opportunities that lie ahead. But most importantly, we've highlighted why this topic is so crucial for UPSC aspirants. It's about technology, yes, but it's also about economics, policymaking, and India's place in the digital world.
And as we wrap things up, let's leave our listeners with a question to ponder. What will India's data center landscape look like in the next decade? What role will it play in shaping our digital future? Think about the trends we've talked about, the challenges and opportunities, the impact of government policies. Your understanding of this dynamic sector could very well help shape India's digital destiny.
A lot to think about, for sure. And on that note, we come to the end of this deep dive. If you found this episode insightful and helpful for your UPSC preparation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. Share it with your fellow aspirants, and until next time, keep learning, stay curious, and aim high.